This is the FlipNerd.com Expert Real Estate Investing Show, the show for real estate investors, whether you're a veteran or brand new. I'm your host, Mike Hambright, and each week I bring you a new expert guest that will share their knowledge and lessons with you. If you're excited about real estate investing, believe in personal responsibility, and taking control of your life and financial destiny, you're in the right place. This is episode number 359, and my guest is Larry Higgins of skipgenie.com. Now, unless you're able to find more deals than you can handle, you're going to love today's show. I'm excited for myself even, as I know this is going to help me and my team do more deals, no doubt about it. For years, a byproduct of me spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on direct mail is return postcards and letters, which we've done nothing with. We basically just throw it away. Well, it turns out that that's where the gold's at. We talk all about skip tracing today and how to track down sellers that everyone else has stopped looking for. If you're interested in finding deals where you have little to no competition, then this show is for you. Please help me welcome Larry Higgins to the show. Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about this because, everybody knows, especially veteran real estate investors that have been doing this for a while, understands how competitive the market is right now. And I, you and I know a lot of really successful real estate investors, and there's a lot of people that have been rock stars for a long time that are like scratching their head, like, what can I do differently? Because some of the stuff I've been doing for a long time just isn't working the way that it used to. So I'm excited to talk about skip tracing today because, I told you we used to fill boxes full of letters and postcards that bounce back to us, and we kind of take them off our list and throw them away. So sounds like we might have been throwing out some gold for a while, I guess. Is that the case?
Yeah, I cringe just thinking about it.
It was my money. I'm cringing.
I'm cringing vicariously, but
yeah. Well, hey, before we jump into this topic, maybe tell us a little bit more about your background and kind of how you got into this.
Okay, so I haven't been in real estate for a real long time by any measure. I think I'm at almost 4 years. I have a construction management background. I graduated from Texas A&M. Worked in multifamily construction, worked overseas for a little while, came home, found myself in a job I hated for the first time. And I kind of had an interest in buying some, building up a rental portfolio over time. I've never really given it serious thought, but real estate appealed to me for different reasons. And the job I had just kept eating at me. It was just boring. I good company, good people I worked with, great boss, good pay. I just dreaded going to the office every day. And you know what? Life's too short, and jumped into real estate. I didn't know much about it. Learned really fast. I didn't even own my own house at that point.
Yeah.
I was fortunate. I got a mentor with, I believe Mitch Stephen.
Oh yeah.
Just a great guy. Yeah, Mitch is phenomenal, and he's the owner finance guru.
Right.
And I did my first 2 deals, owner financed them, not home runs by any means, but good solid deals. And I got into wholesaling. I was going to build a little stockpile of cash to do stuff, and I'm still wholesaling, 3 years later. So it's, yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what is skip tracing? Let's start off by talking about what it even is. What does that mean?
So, technically the traditional definition is, skip trace would apply to people that skipped out on their debt. So creditors try and find them, repo guys, banks, whoever it is. And that's where the term comes from. But as it applies to real estate, it's basically you're trying to find a property owner for some reason or another. You may think they're a potential motivated seller. Specifically to real estate, you could apply it to vacant houses you see, to return mail you get back from your mail campaigns, or in a broader sense, if you're really doing volume, you could skip trace a list that you might normally mail of 1,000 or several thousand properties. You could skip trace the whole thing to get phone numbers and rather than mail them, call those people.
Yeah. Yeah. What a lot of real estate investors don't know is that, I get letters and postcards back, and I just haven't, like, I don't want to, who wants to fool with that? And they don't know how to find the person, but you just kind of move on. You don't really think about, well, yeah, everybody's given up now. So what if I take it to another level? I mean, that's the opportunity here, right? Is you found a house that fits your criteria, whatever list you're mailing to, but the post office says that they don't know where that person's at. You already know the address of the house. You just have to find a different way to find the person than contacting them, via mail, right?
And sometimes the post office does you a very valuable favor by stamping on that piece of mail deceased or dead or vacant. They confirm that for you.
Yeah.
And that right there, especially when they tell you the owner's deceased. Well, if you weren't mailing an estate, if you thought that person was alive, but the post office tells you they're deceased, that's pretty good information to have. That moves to the top of my list pretty quick.
Yeah, my heart just sank as you said that, because I know we've got those, and I think we scan them. We have my VA take them off the list, and then we throw them away. That's crazy. I'm like, it's bittersweet. I'm sad and I'm excited at the same time, because I know we're going to do things a little differently going forward.
Yeah, and there's a prime example right there. So on paper, that could look like an owner-occupied house. Nothing fancy or sexy about it. Yep. But it gets returned to you. You find out they're actually deceased. Well, it's become what I call an invisible estate. Nobody else, it's not on a probate list. It's not on an estate list, because on paper they look like they're alive for the appraisal district. Yeah. Now you just have to find those heirs, and I really like those kinds of deals for different reasons.
Yeah. Probably, and truthfully, am I right by saying that one of the biggest opportunities is that most people have been doing what I do, where they're dropping mail, and as soon as it starts to get hard, you're like, well, not worth the effort, so move on. But I've kind of been looking at that the wrong way the whole time. I mean, that's the case. Is a lot of people don't do the skip tracing part, right? They just stop because that doesn't fit their model. They're too busy to do anything else with it, right?
Yes. So it's actually your mindset it's a complete 180. It's a complete paradigm shift. My mindset is the harder they are to find, the more and more I'm like a dog with a bone.
Yeah.
The harder they are to find, the more determined I am to find them, because I know everybody else has given up, and it's just the higher the likelihood of a deal, and a better deal at that.
Yeah. So to give a few common examples, I guess, why the post office doesn't know how to contact anybody related to that house?
Well, could just be laziness. They don't do a forwarding address, or it could be, the owner died. It's not uncommon to find deceased owners, like the scenario we just talked about. Yeah. The family doesn't do anything. They'll just let the property sit idle. And it's hard for some people to believe this, but we're used to very orderly, there's a wrong way to there's a right way to die. Have a will, probate the will, take care of the family affairs. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So I've never gone after a probate. I know people use probate lists. They make money off probate lists. But right off the bat, I don't like that list, because they show a level of sophistication and means I don't like. They had a will and they probated the will.
Yeah.
I'm sure I know people get deal. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I want the people that need more help. And sometimes what you find is, if you're lucky, the heirs may not even know they have legal interest in the property. Or another scenario is sometimes they think after X amount of months or years, say the owner dies, they just assume the county, that you'll call up a son or a daughter or whoever the heir might be. They'll say, well, you need to call the county, or the county owns it now, or the bank. They just assume it's been foreclosed on they just take that guess. Well,
right.
They've mentally accepted zero for that property. So that generally equates to a pretty good day if you can get it contracted.
Yeah, if somebody knows that they have a chance to kind of solve that problem and make some money in the process that they didn't know was coming, that's they probably have some motivation to get it done quickly, and
yes.
You're probably not.
And some of them will find, some of them would like to sell, and they may have even gotten mail one way or another. Maybe mail was going to the house. Maybe it wasn't return mail, but mail was going to get delivered and the family was getting it, or maybe they updated a mailing address to go to one of the relatives. They may have this has happened to us several times. They have, just in the last few years or so, they'll have a stack of mail, but they haven't called anybody just because they didn't think they could sell for some reason, because there was no will, or there's, taxes owed, or they think whatever that problem is. But if you can get them on the phone and talk to them and say, well, what if I can solve that problem? Do this, 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 and then you can get, $5,000 or whatever that number is.
Right.
You will help people that way.
So let's talk a little about that. So when you do skip trace somebody, you get contact information back for some people that were kind of known family members, or how does that work? Are you looking to change your life through real estate investing? If you're interested in either getting started or taking your business to the next level, please check out FlipNerd's private program at theinvestormachine.com. This is the most robust real estate investor coaching, networking, and mastermind on the planet, and designed for your success. If you're ready to roll up your sleeves, ready to take personal responsibility for your own success, and ready to dive into a world-class instructional coaching program that provides you step-by-step instruction to help you achieve financial freedom, then you should apply today. Spaces are limited, and candidates are only considered after an application and interview process. Our 12-month investor program is unparalleled. Think you might be a fit? Learn more today at theinvestormachine.com. Kind of known family members, or how does that work?
So you, even whether alive or deceased, just a very basic report will show the likely relatives. So, and part of the issue with even people that do skip trace, they give up too easily. So some people, especially with return mail and vacant houses, just the nature of those alone, the owners tend to be harder to get on the phone, whether it's you can't get a good phone number, or you don't know if it's a good number, or they just won't respond to you. If I know it's an inherited property, or I know that it's a vacant property, I don't hesitate to pull reports on the relatives and start dialing them, because there could be a multitude of reasons why you can't reach that owner. Could be in prison, could be working overseas, could be in a mental hospital, could be in hospice. These are all real scenarios we've dealt with.
Right. And how do you find out who has the kind of signing authority? Because you're not digging into probates and stuff like that. Like maybe it has gone through probate and it's still there, but how do you find out? Well, it's one thing to call family members and say, hey, we're interested in buying this property at 123 Main Street, and it looks like you may. How do you talk a little bit about what you say? Like you may be an heir, or do you happen to know who the seller is? Or talk about that process of talking to people that you're contacting and then finding out who it actually does have kind of decision-making authority for the property.
Well, so the vast majority of cases, if the appraisal district just shows it in the owner's name, not in an estate or anything like that, generally, the vast majority of cases, there's no probate. So I won't even look for a probate record. Okay. And if I know it's vacant or the mail got returned, it just tells me call them. So in Texas, our heirship laws are in most states, the heirship laws are somewhat similar. It's just a matter of, can you do an affidavit of heirship, or do you have to go through the probate process? Yeah. Fortunately, and I say fortunately, it's easier for us, quicker. We can do the affidavit of heirship. So once if I know the owner's deceased, I just look for, the children, or who the likely children are, the closest relatives. And I'm just looking for that one point of contact that can confirm what I'm thinking, help me get in touch with the other heirs, and start that conversation with them, and then just do the affidavit of heirship. And some of our customers we deal with in other states, they have to do the probate process. Well, depends on your mindset, but I'm almost jealous of them, because if there was no will, your offer to those people is much more valuable than ours, because you're willing to pay, assuming you're willing to do what you need to do to get the deal, but pay for the attorney, take care of the probate, going through probate court and all that. You bring a lot more value to the table that way. Takes longer to get it done, but your margins are probably even better than what we get when we do the affidavits here. Yeah. So what are some of the common issues? Like, I know there's other people that skip trace. There's lots of services out there. What are some of the common problems of people that might have been skip tracing in the past
but they don't, they're making mistakes. They're not doing it the way that you guys do it now.
Rob, first and foremost, being using what I call the lower tier services. That's Spokio, Intellius, White Pages. If somebody's been living in a property for 20 years, pretty stable, you can probably get a good phone number for them. But again, I go back to the nature of return mail and vacants.
Right.
You need to start with quality data. If you don't have that, again, you may not be able to reach them, but at least you've got the best data you can get as far as phone numbers, relatives, and things like, and just whether or not they're even alive. You start running in circles when you have bad data. Just somebody I helped last week, he was trying to get a good phone number for a lady in Maryland, and we ran a report for him. I said, I don't care how good her phone number is, unless it runs to heaven, you're not getting in touch. But he didn't know it; she had died. He was using a lower tier provider, I think it was Intellius, and it showed she was 72 and alive. Well, we were able to confirm that she had died and point him in the direction of the heirs.
Yeah.
So that's one issue. The other thing is just giving up too soon. Like I said, some people you're not going to get on the phone. But if it's a qualified lead, such as return mail or a vacant that has, say, tax issues or something to that effect, I have no hesitation. If I can't get them on the phone, I'll call relatives, and I will keep calling until somebody gets me in touch with them. And probably the most costly mistake, this doesn't happen real often, but when there's a deceased owner and no obvious relatives. I've been guilty of this in the past, but not anymore. Do your research. Everybody has heirs. Could be second cousins, could be distant, but some are harder to find than others. But there's occasions where it doesn't happen real often, but we'll bring in a genealogist. It wasn't, it's not by accident. The best deal we did last year, we had to use a genealogist to help us find a couple of people.
Wow.
We just need to know who they were, and then we could find them. And she helped us identify those.
Yeah. So is it a lot harder with more common names? Like if somebody's last name is Smith versus something that's unique to find maybe descendants or heirs?
We haven't used that as often. Really haven't had enough case studies, I guess, to make a good point about that. Now, in general, just finding whether they're dead or alive, if all you have is a name, you basically need 2 points of reference to search for somebody. But you're right. A lot of times I will do an obituary search for like a John Smith. That's an issue. John Smith in Houston, there's a lot of obituaries. So, whereas if I, search Phineas Cooper in, Baytown, Texas, I'm probably going to find his obituary a lot easier.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. So what are some of the applications? Like, how do you find addresses? Is this just a byproduct of your direct mail, or talk a little bit about how you kind of find those addresses?
So there's different ways. Initially, I got into it starting out brand new. I did the mail route. I was never a high volume guy. I was on a tight budget. And I just never really, I got a couple of deals, wasn't real big on mail. And then I just decided to be real focused on driving for dollars. So I did skip trace my return mail. Then I started skip tracing vacants. That's how I initially did it. And then I got to where I would just take pretty qualified lists. Here in our market, you have it there. I like real acquisitions. I would create my own pretty tight list, and I would just start researching them. Like I said, nowadays we're not as much volume as we used to be. We used to cast a pretty wide net, and we did a lot of phone calls, but it worked.
Right.
Now it's not as many calls, fewer deals, but they're much more substantial deals. So I will take a list and just start working through it.
Yeah, I know some people, even different mail houses that I've worked with. So when you buy your list, depending on where you buy it from, or when you mail your list, sometimes there's a little bit of an extra cost. Sometimes it's just part of their offering is that they scrub it against the USPS deliverability list. I'm not sure the exact name, but they'll, like, for example, the companies that I buy my list from, they usually they say they charge. I don't know if they just say this or not, but they say that they'll bounce it off the list for me for no charge, but normally they charge people because it's me, Now, and then even my print house that mails it runs it against their list. And truthfully, what they do, is especially the print house. I've already paid for that list. And if they take people off, they say this is undeliverable. I've never even asked them to send me that list back. They just take it off so they don't waste money mailing, but that's where the goal, that's where the gold is, right? It's crazy that we're having this conversation.
It
It's
sounds
crazy.
like they're probably scrubbing against, like, a lot of these places have the vacant list, that's generated from the post office, gets
Right.
reported to HUD and all that. That's probably what they're scrubbing against. That
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily be a bad, that's an entertaining or interesting thought there, as far as a quality list.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of a byproduct of your lists that bounce back to you. You could buy, I guess you could buy. So are there certain lists that you buy that you just, I mean, you don't skip trace anything. How do you know that it's going to like bounce back, that you can't, that it's not getting forwarded to somewhere? Like, let's say you bought a tax delinquent list or something like that. Do you have to run it through some process to know that I'm going to try to do any sort of skip tracing or calling people? Or, how, you know what I mean? Where do you draw the line between the mail could get delivered versus I just want to try to call them and reach out to them
See,
that way?
that's one thing. I don't, I don't do any mail anymore. It's just
Right.
100% research and call.
Right.
But even on the list, like, I can take a tax delinquent list. Maybe I'll pick the top 200 tax delinquencies or tax judgments in a certain area, say out of state tax owners, or
Yeah.
out of state owners with tax issues, and just skip trace the entire list. Specifically, I'm looking for deceased owners, or people. Sometimes you'll find owners in their 90s or 100s, literally over 100 years old. They could actually be deceased, but their death was never reported to the Social Security death index, so they can look alive on paper.
Okay.
So that's one thing we teach our customers to do, is pay attention to the ages. Most people's deaths get reported, but sometimes, every once in a while, you'll find somebody that shows up 110 years old. Well, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that
Yeah.
if they are alive, they're not living at home, probably.
So I know you have a product that you guys have created called Skip Genie, and when you skip trace somebody, does it come back and does it tell you their age, and like what information does it provide you as a customer?
So we give you all the key information you'll need, as far as helping to prioritize and to get in contact. So we call it the death indicator. It tell you if they're alive or deceased. Gives you their age, their address history, the phone numbers associated with them, possible email addresses, and financial distress indicators. We're not giving you the details on those, but if they have bankruptcies, liens, or judgments, we'll give you an account for each.
Okay.
So with all that data, even if say you had 1,000 pieces of returned mail, I'm always all about prioritization, especially if you have limited means to do phone calls or something to that effect. Filter for the deceased owners first, and then filter by age in descending order. Who has a new out of state address compared to what you thought their address, the property address.
Yeah.
Who's got the financial issues. So there's a lot of ways to prioritize your efforts there.
And when you do the skip trace, is it based on the owner's name and last known address? Are those the two pieces of information, or what's the kind of critical information you need?
So when we do it, we use owner name and property address.
Okay.
90-something% of people there's gonna be a result when you use those 2 points of reference.
Okay.
Sometimes they're so far removed from that property, or maybe they never even lived there or they owned it, but that was the only association. No utility, nothing ever tied them there. Occasionally they won't show up in a report, and then we can search a mailing address or some other options to try and get that report on them.
Right. Awesome. So, are there any other, like, what, I guess, if somebody wanted to start doing this, if they're listening to this show right now and they see the opportunity, like, is there, and I'm like waking up to, what do they do to get started? Like, where do you go? Because for me, I know in my mind, it's like, hey, the easiest way for me to start is probably a byproduct of the direct mail I'm already sending. I'm sending a lot of direct mail in 2 different markets. And again, we're just disposing of this stuff if it bounces back. So I know that's crazy, so that's an obvious way to get started. If you weren't doing direct mail like you, Do you just go after some kind of highly motivated lists and try to target people that way? Maybe just explain a little bit about how to get started, whether you're already mailing or whether you're not, and you might want to try to find, subject properties another way, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I love about skip tracing in general, and one of the reasons we're doing what we are is it's so versatile and there's so much utility in it. So whether you're you, tons of experience, done a lot of deals, you can find a way to apply this with just if all you did was return mail, it would be worth the investment, worth the time to do it. Other people, maybe it's just taking a really targeted, create your own really targeted list, and you just want to call them, just cold call maybe 100 people. And when I say a really good list, an example would be maybe estates with severe tax delinquency and the mailing address is out of state, or expired listings with a out of state owner with serious tax delinquency. I try and check as many good indicators as I can in a list.
Yeah.
Or you could literally take a tax delinquent list, maybe pay a VA to go through address by address, go to Google Street View and see which one's looking disrepair and vacant. So now I've checked two boxes that I love. It's vacant and there's a tax issue. I'm real big on the tax list. Foreclosure, pre-foreclosures, mortgage defaults, things like that. Or if you're brand new on a tight budget, I've seen it. This is what I did, driving for dollars. You can stretch those dollars a lot further. And my goal with our newer customers is to help them get their footing, that first good deal to where they can kind of catch their breath a little bit. Driving, to me, the number one overall indicator of a possible deal is a vacant house in disrepair.
Yeah.
There's ways to even prioritize those, but that's kind of how the different mix of ways you can come up with these properties to skip trace.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about kind of operationally. So you've got people that are individual investors that are kind of doing it all. They're hustling. So that's kind of obvious. They'll be doing the calling themselves and following up on leads and doing different level of research that need to be done. For some of the bigger folks that want to kind of implement this in, this sounds like one of those things that is hard to probably hand off to a international VA because it takes some familiarity with kind of how things work here, maybe a higher level of research or whatever. But just talk about how people that are kind of doing some volume now and want to pull this in, like operationally, can have different people to help carry the burden. Because some of the more experienced people, like me, for example, I don't have there's no more time left in my day. So if I wanted, let's just talk about me. If I wanted to go do this, I'm like, do I need to outsource it to a salesperson initially to do it? Or is this something that an admin can start with and then hand it off to a salesperson? Or how have you seen that work best?
You cover some different scenarios that work. So we have some people that they're starting to use overseas call centers. They're not negotiating. Their job is to get somebody on the phone, figure out if they want to sell or not, or if they need help selling or something like that. Last year, we had a lady in our office. We were brand new. There was a huge learning curve for us the last year and a half. This lady had experience cold calling, somewhat real estate related, but not with investors. But we were paying her $15 an hour. We developed scripts and a bunch of things to smooth the process out. Initially, she was manually dialing. Then we got set up on the auto dialers and things like that.
Yeah.
Having her in the office, she couldn't negotiate anything. Her job was just to dial the numbers, figure out if they wanted to sell, and get them on the phone with me or Will. We were paying her $15 an hour, but she brought in, just her calling, she brought in a lot of money. Very well worth it. Yeah. Minimal training, really. It was kind of painful because we'd never done it. But now I look back, I'm like, okay, we could do that. Or maybe you want to, you're a pretty busy guy. Maybe you do want, like I said, she had to retire. I want to hire her again, but the next time, I don't want anybody to hand it off to me. I want an acquisition agent that can do the calls. Right. They can do everything at that point. That way I don't have to keep getting pulled back into it and things like that, run the leads. So you could do the in-house. You could get, one or two VAs overseas or a full-blown call center. there's call centers stateside here. We haven't used them, but I know that they exist.
Yeah.
Or, or you could do a combination of slide broadcast where you send the ringless voicemail out. Take a list of 100 or 1,000 properties and just send it out and see what comes back to you while you work the other leads as you can get to them. But there's a lot of it just depends on what the investor, you're very experienced in scaling up, putting people in the right position, training and putting that system in place. I could easily see you being able to hire somebody to do the calls, get them trained and just sit there and that's what they do is call all day.
Yeah, because that first, my guess is that first round when you find out these are all the potential heirs of the property, right? You're probably calling through a lot of people that may not even know that they have any say, and like you said, they don't even necessarily know that the property is still for sale. Or initially you're just trying to get somebody on the phone you probably get a ton of feedback, right? When you say, well, we want to buy this property at 123 Main Street, and it looks like Joe Brown used to live there. Was that your father? You kind of like listening, right? Like, really, what do they say? Like, oh no, my uncle is responsible for that. Or, you probably learn a lot just by getting somebody on the phone that knows something, right? Because all you know is some potential addresses, right?
You're exactly right. A lot of times they'll cut you off and just start telling you, hey, so, our script, without reading the whole thing, but so you get to a point in the script where, so I was just trying to reach out and get in touch with the relatives, whoever owns or controls this property now, to see if they'd have any interest in selling it. A lot of times before you even get that far, oh, that was my dad's house, and they're telling you the whole story.
Yeah.
Or it's whose house, or that so-and-so's taking care of it. It's surprising to me for the deceased owners or estates, they're pretty open about everything in general. They volunteer information.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess the best thing is, in terms of getting started, how somebody can get started, I want to kind of bring this to a close here and talk about how people can get started, is just, why don't you tell us what you'd recommend? I assume it's finding a list, finding a way to like get a list to focus on. That'd probably be your first thing, right?
Yeah, I figured, that's it. Figure out where would you start. Are you brand new? You have vacants? You have a list of them already, or you have a lot of return mail, or maybe you've thrown all your return mail away and you're just going to create a really quality list. You could go pull a list of weed abatements from the municipality or something. Who's got weed abatement liens recently or something to that effect. So figure out what your list would be. Second step would be to figure out how much time can you put into calling this? How many properties are there? And what would it take? If it's just you, and you may not know that answer if you've never called, you've never had to go through that process. My number one recommendation is don't bite off more than you can chew at once, because you will. It can get even with a good CRM, it can become a headache when you've got a lot of different leads open. That it's like just pick 5 or 10 and run them to ground completely, and then move on to the next. Don't try and do too much at once. But
right.
You can generally knock out quite a few in a day or two. So.
Yeah, and I think probably one of the big things is, as people are listening to this, are you the type of person that's comfortable just picking up the phone and calling people randomly? Because a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, but it's something you got to be good at, or you got to find somebody that is, right?
To this day, I hate calling. Absolutely. Yeah. But my mindset, my mindset is there's $50,000, $100,000, or $150,000 on the other side of that phone. I have to dial to go. I have to dial those numbers to go get it, and it's just there's money there. You have to dial. It's dialing for dollars. What it amounts to.
Yeah.
And it's not. Most people are pretty, even if they don't want to sell. I've had people literally thank me for calling. Okay, you're welcome. It's no big deal, but it's not bad. It's just, like I said, don't let the fear overcome you, or just you just got to do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Larry, if folks want to learn more about, so you guys, we didn't talk about it a lot because we don't want to like pitch things here, but you guys have a product. I mean, you do this and you've created kind of a better mousetrap that is super reasonable. I mean, even some of the competitors I know you guys are, you're priced really reasonably, and it's much more targeted for skip tracing potential sellers and not just a general skip trace. Like, how do I find some long lost boyfriend or girlfriend or something like that, right? So tell us a little bit more about your product and then where folks can learn more about it.
Yeah, so we started skipgenie.com, and one of the reasons was there's an underserved market. First of all, we all, especially the more experienced people have been in the game for a while, it's getting more and more and more competitive. Mail is very saturated, and so we know there's demand for skip tracing in general, but there's nobody out there that teaches you what to do with that information. What if you can't reach that person, or giving you scripts to talk to people, working out different scenarios, weekly Q&A calls, whatever issue you might have. We're going to kick off our weekly call next week, actually. We have a vested interest in helping our customers be successful, and I enjoy talking about skip tracing, but that's why we started it. And so we do provide the data. Like I tell people, we're not just a data provider. We'll give you the scripts, ongoing support. If you've got a really hot deal with a short fuse, I'm somewhat accessible. I can't guarantee I'll quit back and reply, but I want to do everything I can to help our customers get deals.
So awesome. So where do they go to learn more?
They go to skipgenie.com, and they can always email me directly. It's Larry@skipgenie.com, and I've got no problems. I enjoy talking to people, especially whatever level you're at. Just talking strategy, how you can implement it into what you're doing. Maybe you have a very specific property you're going. That's how I met Will. Will's done over 1,000 deals. In a roundabout way, he found out I was helping people. This was a while back. I was doing one-off skip traces here and there. And he was trying to find an owner, and that's how we kind of teamed up initially.
Awesome. Well, this is great. This is great stuff. I know I'm gonna I'm gonna dive into this for sure with my team, and so we'll have the links you for Skip Genie and a few of the things we mentioned in the show down below here. But appreciate you spending some time with us today.
I appreciate you taking the time to have me on. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is great information. I mean, we're going to start talking more and more about lead generation and how to navigate. We have we had a lot of great guests on the show, but we're going to start talking a lot more about how to navigate this kind of more challenging market and more lead generation and things like that. Right. So this is like perfect for where we're at right now because a lot of people can use this information. So appreciate you sharing it with us.
Yeah, Skip. This is one of the other things that gets me. Skip tracing, a lot of people have heard of it, real estate investors, but it's just kind of a throwaway line like, oh, fine, see a vacant, just skip trace the owner.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it in depth and how to really utilize it. So hopefully it helps some people.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending time with us. Thanks for sharing your information. We'll add the links down below the video. And for those of you that are listening to the show, thanks for joining us for another episode. We're gonna keep firing them at you, and we're gonna keep bringing you great guests like Larry. So everybody, thanks for joining us today. One other ask, I always forget to ask this at the end of my shows, but if you have not given us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher Radio, anywhere else where you watch, we would really love it. Podcasters don't talk about this a whole lot, but the more our show shows up higher in the rankings, the more excited we get and the more we want to keep doing our show and bringing good value. So if you enjoy the show after 300 and if you don't enjoy the show after 360 episodes and you've listened to all of them, and you don't have to give me a rating, but if you like the show and you like what we're doing here, it gets me pumped up that somebody took the time to give us a good rating, give us some feedback on iTunes or wherever else you listen to us. So thanks for doing that. One more time, Larry, thanks again. Great to see you, my friend.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the FlipNerd.com Investing Show. If you're not yet an elite member of FlipNerd, you're missing out. We have tons of great training, including a new detailed masterclass published each month and live training webinars with experts twice a month. Plus, you'll get access to all of our archives, where we already have a growing library of masterclasses and other training videos. Elite members also get membership in our incredible online Mastermind group, where many of the top real estate investors from across the country, including many of the hundreds of guests I've had on the show in the past, are already members. Whether you're brand new, looking to get started, or a veteran, you simply must join today. I promise you won't be disappointed. To learn more or join today, please visit flipnerd.com/lab. That's flipnerd.com/lab. See you on the next show.